Even with your big puppy. Oh, that's why I left it on. So cold. Are you laughing at me now? Yes. Oh, okay. There's Jason.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Brad. All right, I'll go ahead and call our work session into order for December 5th, 2023 at 5:17. Welcome, everybody. We got two items on the agenda tonight. The first is a conversation about Thurlow West. I think Erica and Eric are here to give us a nice presentation on that. And then we're going to, a little bit later, we got city boards and commission goals and objectives, part one that we'll be doing. So welcome, everybody. Anyways, with that, I'll turn it over to Eric.
Thank you, Mayor Rosener. So yep, here to talk about the Sherwood West UGB expansion. See if I can get. Yep. Just a quick overview of where we've been. We've had 3 work sessions so far. We've talked about a lot of different things: middle housing, master planning, annexation policy, process, all sorts of things. We've done a community open house. Last week, we submitted a letter of interest to Metro per your direction. We're here at December 5th talking about alternatives, and we have 2 more potential meetings to talk about alternatives. The first meeting in January and the second meeting in January. So depending on how this goes, we'll be looking for a target date, either the first or second meeting in January, depending on how much time is needed to bring stuff back. At either of those 2 meetings is when we're requesting the final direction from council, because we'll need to put together the full application, potentially revise if we're doing a partial ask. And so we're hoping to have enough time to actually do all that stuff. So January.
That's, yeah, one of the things that we talked about as well is, I mean, at least for me, one of the kind of final things in my brain is, where's council's consensus on how we approach it once it comes in with things like whatever Metro approves. So like, for instance, are we gonna master plan? If we are, what areas are we gonna master plan? Just kind of make sure we all, because I think that's critical in terms of how we manage growth out there. Make sure we have a line. Conversation around that, either the first or second meeting in January as well. And if there's anything else at the end of this that you want staff to come back on, or you have additional questions or something like that, tonight would be a great time to give staff some heads up.
Yeah, we're really coming down to the wire here. And I think how we actually implement this, whether or not we do master planning, et cetera, whether or not we have annexation policy, all of that is going to influence how things develop and what we actually get. And so I think it's important for us to be on the same page before we make the ask, or on the same page about how we're actually going to do this and the results that we
don't have to have it all in place. We just.
No, but I think consensus, so we don't get to a point and then we have different opinions on how we're actually going to accomplish all this. So in terms of the alternatives analysis, a lot of different considerations that went into this. So planning and engineering staff looked at the Sherwood West plan, looked at a lot of different factors and came up with some alternatives for discussion. We're looking at housing and employment needs. So we have an updated EOA, updated HNA. We really started with that. How much land do we need to cover our housing and employment needs over the 20-year planning horizon? So we started with that as a baseline. We also looked at infrastructure costs, feasibility, schedule, Elwert Road feasibility. It's kind of hard to see here, but the Sherwood West is very north-south oriented, and Elwert Road goes north-south, and there's a little pinch point in an area where Cedar Creek runs through. So it's things like that we're looking at. Chicken Creek, sorry.
At the creek.
It's
Waterway.
water.
Floodplain.
Feasibility of infrastructure. Can we actually get this done if we start taking stuff out? The Brookman trunk line. This is this image on the right. It's black is where the proposed alignment of the Brookman trunk line is going to come through Brookman, as it's shown here, and then come up along Highway 99 and hit the high school and service the high school, but it also service Basin 1, Basin 2, and all of these basins to the south. And so if we're making this investment in infrastructure, you know, how many people can use it? Is it just for the high school? Is it just for Brookman plus the high school, or is it for Brookman plus the high school plus more? And that's where the feasibility, the cost of infrastructure comes in. How much in SDCs are we getting to pay back that? If we're doing a reimbursement district, how many people are paying into that reimbursement district? So generally speaking, the more people we have paying in, the better the outcome is going to look in terms of cost and feasibility. We also looked at development readiness and growth management. You know, we don't want to propose bringing in an area that can't be developed because other area has to be brought in first. So we're looking at phasing. And then we're also looking at the concept plan and citizen involvement. You know, what are the goals and vision of the concept plan? Do the alternatives that we're proposing actually meet those goals that were laid out by the public? We're looking at elevation as well. This is a example of, I think, a really good sort of technical issue where this red line right here is a 375-foot elevation line. And we do have a water master plan for this area. What that water master plan says is that anything over this 375 mark should be served by a new reservoir.
Little things.
So, you know,
$4 million thing nowadays.
if we cut this off and we only have a really small portion of land within this, you know, within this area, can we afford that reservoir? You know, things like that we're looking at. Slopes and grade for water.
Does that area alone have to bear the burden of that reservoir cost? I think the answer is no.
No, yeah.
And so the whole, in theory, if we did all of Sherwood West could help bear the burden of that, the water infrastructure required for the old.
Reimbursement district or special assessment or something.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's a lot of details to be worked out. Absolutely. And I think we'll get a more refined picture. So it can be difficult to know. And I think that's why it's kind of what we're saying. Hey, we need to know soon what you guys want to do, because then we got to go work with Jason and figure out, is this actually feasible from a cost and all the other standpoints. So, but I think generally speaking, if you have less land within the UGB, you're going to be getting less revenue. And I think the question is, how much more infrastructure is needed for those extra people? Slopes and grade, water, flow, sewer flow, roads, you know, steep grades, more expensive to build roads. So we're looking at road alignment as well. And then stream and upland habitat. We know it's expensive and potentially not feasible to develop in natural areas. And so we're looking at natural areas as well. And so we've come up with really 4 alternatives. On the top is a full ask, on the bottom is no ask. So at the full ask, we're looking at 1,300 acres, 3,000 housing units. That would be the high end of the base zoning, 3,000 units, and then jobs is at the 4,500, no loss in jobs. Yeah.
So when the CAC worked through all this, when we talked about density, we had base zoning, but because of HB 2001, and because, for instance, single family detached can be upsized to like duplexes on a 5,000 square foot lot.
Yeah.
That number doesn't include that potential lift above that.
It doesn't. So we're looking at the estimate in the concept plan was 5 to 10% middle housing within the single family zones. And so it'll be incrementally, you know, larger, higher number than that. For just ease of, you know, reference, we didn't actually do that calculation, but it would be, if we did have middle housing and it was maxed out, both the density, base density plus middle housing is going to be higher than that.
That was also, those calculations were also done before our more recent conversations around what we could and couldn't do through master planning.
Correct. So if you in theory, if you master planned everything and the calculations were perfect, you would get that number. Yeah.
Either the 3,100 or the 2,300 or the 1,000.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some conversations on CAC too, because in terms of meeting statewide and metro density goals, that upsized number based on HB 2001 was part of the conversation.
Right. Yep. So first one,
That's just.
Are you gonna have maps on these or?
yes, absolutely.
Just reinforce that point. So if we went down the route that at least a couple of counselors are interested in possibly master planning, you master plan the entire residential portion. Or even the industrial portion. I mean, there's different ways of master planning. You can do a variety of housing types and you can land on the 3,100 number or the 2,300 number. And that would be what it is.
The only difference was that you couldn't prevent duplexes, what I remember that conversation.
right.
So
Correct.
you would get some addition, you
You
could
could.
get some additional above this. But the upside would be much lower through a full master plan than it would be if we didn't, right? Because if we didn't, in theory, this number could go to 150%.
Yeah.
If you master plan, it probably could go to 110%, you know?
Okay.
And my point was, if we need to get to 110 to hit statewide goals. We want to present it that way, right? Because we're talking about the capacity, not what it's zoned for.
Yeah.
Taylor's in the waiting for the admin.
Oh, yeah.
Take that. See if he's there.
Very nice.
We either go back to can you put on a speaker view or back to the minimized view, sort of some block the whole presentation? You go to speaker view, it only show one,
Yeah.
that works fine, we don't need to see them.
All right. So in all the alternatives, we met both the housing and the employment needs for the city over the 20-year planning period. So the full ask is the full ask. Partial gets us a little bit lower than the full ask. And then this alternative C is basically the lowest that we could take it while meeting our housing and employment numbers. So 1,000 units in housing is the highest density of the base zone. The lowest density of the base zone is about 600. So if we got the absolute lowest density in all the zones, it would still be 600, and that would meet our 600 unit deficit that we need. So the job's slightly reduced here to 3,000. And then the no ask is 000, and we'll talk about that right now. And I do have maps for all of them as well. Okay, so no ask, just really quickly what this looks like. And it is an option, but it comes with some warnings. Basically, we wouldn't be able to meet our housing and employment needs over the 20-year planning period without doing something within our current urban growth boundary. Basically, that's upzoning if you want to do that. Employment land is going to be really difficult to meet without an urban growth boundary expansion.
Assuming we didn't do an ask in the next cycle.
Assuming we do no ask, right? So this is
To me, no ask really means no ask now. Like, it doesn't mean no ask, it just means you're delaying this
In the
for another
20 years,
4
yeah,
years or 6
yeah.
years or whatever.
Yeah, good clarification. So, but we do have a deficit now. We do have a deficit now, though. And so if the further you push it out, some of these issues, will percolate between now and the time you do the ask.
The pressure will get higher.
Yeah, so for example, right now with legislative zone changes, things like that, we have, if you can demonstrate that you are meeting all of your needs, then you guys have much more discretion to say, actually, on this site, we prefer commercial. If we're short on everything, you guys are gonna have less discretion because we're gonna have to follow state law and metro code as well. And even though our code may allow us to change the zone, metro code and state law may not.
We could get pushed to do more residential.
Correct.
Yes, or it could be difficult.
Could also be more aggressive now.
Yeah, and it could be difficult to deny a zone change from commercial industrial to residential because the state is going to be prioritizing that and their policies are going to prioritize that. So more discretion for you guys within the current urban growth boundary if we really start to address on paper all of these deficits. We did the survey at the open house and I think it missed the mark in terms of what Sherwood residents think and feel. But in terms of how Sherwood West residents and property owners think and feel, it did address that. And there is interest right now. It's not always the case that you have property owner interest. These property owners could be coming out and saying, no way, not on my. There are a few, but generally speaking, it seems like there's interest in doing this. Exactly. And so if you pause, we just don't know. I mean, it's likely they're still gonna be interested, but we don't know for sure who the owners are gonna be at that time and whether or not there's gonna be interest. And then you have a different challenge of trying to actually get them to develop their property. Or annexing. And then, we just have these projects going on that are fairly big investments and we don't realize the full benefit of them. For example, the pedestrian bridge, if we pull the trigger on that, how many people is it actually going to serve, things like that. So here are the two alternatives.
Would we also, I assume if we didn't ask now and had to do it in 5 years, we would also have to essentially redo our plan or relook at it and reinvest in that as well?
That could be an option. I mean, you always have
Don't
an
have to.
but you don't have to.
And it would be.
Okay.
Force that would be legislative changes that, I wouldn't necessarily even force it, but it would make it kind of like what happened this go around is. If there was some significant housing rule changes or legislative changes that might make us want to relook at it, so.
Okay.
By the next, there's an off-cycle ask in 3 years, correct?
So just
The
for
new
residential.
mid-cycle ask and, they're primarily looking at residential development
Right.
in that cycle.
That'd be 2027.
Yes,
And
around the
and
time,
then the state mandated ask in 6 years.
6 years.
Yeah.
2030.
And just to clarify, even if we brought all the land in and none of the owners over there want to do anything, we still have a shortage. We would still have a deficit.
We wouldn't have a deficit of buildable land because it's in.
It's buildable, but
GP.
doesn't necessarily mean it
Yeah.
would get built. Okay,
On paper, we would need it,
yeah.
which is when we're doing these things, you got to demonstrate on paper. And in theory, then that leads to actual outcomes.
So, and just to tamp down misperceptions that we've seen about this process, the landowner would have to decide to actually do something too. This
Yes.
is,
yes.
this
Yes.
isn't a condemnation process. We're not going out and taking land and building houses.
Correct.
So in terms of the two partial asks, alternative B on the left, alternative C on the right. So the grayed areas are what would not be included in a UGB expansion ask. So on the left, this is I guess the more land option. Really what we were paying attention to here, we started in both options with the northern employment land. That was sort of the first and most important. We also wanted to bring in land around the high school. Didn't want the high school just kind of sitting out there, especially if we do move forward with the pedestrian bridge. And then we also included the hospitality district. So kind of the three core areas that we know there's a lot of interest and excitement and investments around. And then we were really paying attention to this conceptual road here and making sure that we could get this built. There's some, the high school is here and then, you cut off your boundary here. So we wanted to make sure we could actually get this road in and all the way down to the hospitality district. So really what you lose in this is residential land only, mainly low density on the west end. So there's no loss of commercial or employment land in this option.
Would you say it would be that residential land we're losing is also the stuff that would probably take longer to develop anyway because of the phasing that's gonna have to
Oh,
be
yeah.
required to get.
Oh yeah, it's on the far west end. It's on the far west end.
Also the area where that one neighborhood isn't.
Yeah, East View is up here.
Yeah, okay.
And then I'll have more details on this. And in this alternative C, much more land being taken out. Same process, started with the North Employment District and kind of worked down. We did include just a little bit. So we included these two commercial zones right here, which is what got us to the jobs number that we needed, the 3,000 jobs. It was about 2,000 jobs up here and we needed more commercial land. So we brought in this around the high school. Notably the hospitality district isn't in, pretty limited development around the high school. And so most of the growth would be up here oriented towards the mixed employment zone. So more detail on this, alternative C against about 600 acres, 1,000 housing units on the higher end and 3,000 jobs on the higher end. In terms of, outcomes, again, we meet our housing and employment land needs. It is actually a greater jobs to housing ratio. So that is I guess the benefit of this is, in terms of meeting our ECDEV goals, that's the higher ratio. Less flexibility in master planning, school and park siting. So just less property, less zones to play with, if you will, in terms of master planning, where they go and how park space and all that sort of stuff.
I just make sure I understand it. We can still master plan it, we just don't have a lot, the playground.
To play with. Yep.
You can't master plan
Yeah, you got some-
areas that are in the gray, right?
Correct. It won't be in the UGB. Correct. Yeah. Less flexibility and alignment of infrastructure. This is the pinch point that I was mentioning of Elwood Road, where, this is going to be a challenge, I think, regardless. But we talked about potentially realigning Elwood Road. And, this is where the pinch point comes in. So I don't know that having this is really going to help all that much. When you look at property lines and things like that, it could. But, it further sort of pinches this point where the natural resources are here as well. So then I guess the last point is, if we don't adopt a concept plan for this area I guess we could actually, I think, so I guess we could, Erica, could we concept plan this and not make the ask for it and then bring it in later?
The area in
Yeah, the area in gray.
It's already concept plan for.
Master plan it, you mean
No,
call
I
it.
actually meant concept plan. So like we have a few situations right now in the city where the zoning map just shows concept plan required. We just haven't done the work, but they're small properties and it doesn't pencil for a developer to try and engage with Metro for this one parcel, right? It's just not, it doesn't really make sense. And so I think an area like this, there is enough that,
Well, it already has a concept plan under.
so that's my
Yeah.
question is if we accept this concept plan, we potentially don't have to go back and redo a concept plan.
Yes.
So it would be up to you guys whether you want to redo the concept plan for these grayed out areas or whether or not you just want to make another ask in the future
Under our current concept.
under your current concept plan, correct?
So, and for those who are listening, the Brookman sewer, the reason we're expanding that, even though it's not near here, is that allows for this area to be developed because we're increasing the size of that. Is that correct?
You wanna go back to, I don't think you saw one of the first slides.
Main reasons to serve the high
You,
school.
you need the Brookman sewer for multiple reasons. Number one, to serve the new school.
Right. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, no worries. And then alternative B is this one. So this would be the one where just the far west end gets taken out. Again, housing and employment lands met, still a higher ratio of jobs to housing relative to a full ask. And what I'm calling moderate flexibility and all these other issues of financing, alignment of infrastructure, economies of scale for SDCs to pay for the infrastructure, things like that. So on this one, about 1,000 acres, 2,300 housing units and 4,500 jobs. So the full number of jobs.
That gray area that's at the south, what is the underlying zone in the concept plan there?
Low density.
Low density.
Same as the bigger chunk, it's all low density, right? Everything that's grayed out in this concept.
There might be like a medium density in there, but it's
No,
it's all.
it's all low
It's all
density.
low. It's all gonna be.
All low.
Thank you.
And then in a full ask, so what we've been talking about, 1,300 acres, about 3,000 units and 4,500 jobs. So the way we're talking about this is the greatest flexibility in alignment of infrastructure, the greatest economies of scale, for SDC paybacks, et cetera. And then I think kind of what, the Mayor Rosener mentioned in the beginning, we do have the ability to master plan and require annexation agreements to try and control what we actually get in the growth there. So just a
And that's
really,
true of any.
yes,
Mhm.
yes. But I think, we put that in there because if there's a concern about pace of growth, about type of development, et cetera, and the full ask, is concerning, we can address that through master planning annexation. In terms of next steps, we have ongoing work happening. We're designing the Brookman trunk line. It's at 60% design. We're also doing a refinement study for the mixed employment zone, looking at how to get that developed ASAP. Again, asking for final feedback in January, March or April, we will bring a resolution to you for the ask. It'll be March. And then April 5th, thank you, is the due date for the full application of Metro. And here's the discussion questions, and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Is there additional information or concerns or before we get to the 2 meetings in January?
Well, I mean, we got 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, I'd like to have discussion around, like, to me, it feels like, well, at least. I'm ready to probably make a decision, but at least let's eliminate some of the, like, to me, C is no point, like, I don't know why we would consider C. But, so I'd like to maybe eliminate a couple of these, so we can focus on two of the 4 maybe, but that's just me.
I'm in favor of full ask.
I'm also in
Master
favor
plan.
of a full ask.
I'm in favor of full ask.
As we, at whatever point, and we're assembling the solution for the financing element of all the infrastructure that's required for the whatever ask. What happens if we fail in that exercise to be able to generate enough money from that region, if one mechanism or another, to build out everything that's needed? So, and I'll give an example. Because we had a meeting, a work session this week on it, so the mayor attended live and I was remote. So in 15, Washington County did a great thing in big areas that were brought in. They were able to bond part of the county property tax levy that was for the MISTIP to help finance massive projects, where 2/3 came from MISTIP, 1/3 came from the region. It really was great. It helped Sherwood, helped Hillsborough South, Bethany, Beaverton South, and River Terrace of Tigard. There's no assurity that the county will do that again for us.
In fact, some of the language in the meeting, there was some specific language they used when they talked about it. They said this one-time program we did in the past, and so we have some concerns. That's
Can you
not.
clarify what this meeting was?
So
It's a WCCC.
Okay.
yeah, Washington County Coordinating Committee dealing with transportation in the region. And the way they used that in the past, what it definitely did was helped accelerate the housing elements in those projects to be realized. And when you know that 4 regions in the last 10 years have done that, and the only 4 in the last 10 years in Washington County used it to help jumpstart. And at least one example that didn't get to use it, and the speed or lack thereof of development, i.e. Brookman. We didn't have that option when we did Brookman. It wasn't available to us. It was pre-15. We'd been given that tool. We might have been able to build out more of Brookman Road. So it's a better road, safer road today. So anyways, are there moments of pause and saying, okay, this is, if we needed to be able to do, if we present a plan and the plan gets rejected by a higher authority, the state, Metro, the county, what happens? We reassess, we say, hey, we need this plan to be successful. And if we can't get this plan, then maybe it requires a vote of the property owners, part of the plan. And those property owners vote down, don't agree with it.
Well, yeah, and that made me think a lot last night too, because we had the Great Recession in 2008, that definitely impacted Brooklyn, but lack of infrastructure is the main driver. We don't have development out there right now, so I would like to get a better read from the county on that, on what their They just need to be direct, is this gonna be a tool we can use or not?
And it could be that we assemble the plan, because I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of tools that are available to us as staff and council review of the potential plan to help pay for everything. And I think we craft a good plan and we send that, and that's what we work with, assume with Metro. But might require something from the state, it might require something from the county, might require something from property owners. And we just have to assume.
So a question along those lines, Eric. So when Metro thinks about readiness, they talk a lot about promoting how they require this concept planning because they want to make sure their impression of why land wasn't being developed is because right or wrong, cities didn't have a plan. But I've also heard them talk about is there a plan for the infrastructure? I mean, what are you hearing from Metro staff in terms of their analysis of these asks and the readiness piece?
I think it's a lot. I think it's, the physical considerations, if you will, of infrastructure and land and phasing and all of that. It's also political support as well. And so, you guys accepting the concept plan and then doing a resolution to, make an ask, that is a formal, decision by the body that there's support for it. The example that we always go back to is Damascus. And, I'm not the expert on what happened in Damascus, but there was maybe political unwillingness and also from the voters as well. And so, they kind of saw it as a backward process. You need to get the buy-in first. And so we're going through that right now. And so I think we check that box. The other boxes that we need to check are, financing. So we have an infrastructure memo that talks about infrastructure financing for Sherwood West. We will, if we do a partial ask, we can update that. They're looking at.
Is the memo part of?
The memo is part of the concept plan and it lists all the tools in the toolbox that could be used.
Right, and that's a start. So there has to be a next step, whatever the point is, the next step in which it gets more solidified as part of what the community council is going to require. And then in turn, the steps that are required by other people to make sure that we can do that. So again, potentially property owners, potentially Metro, potentially the state, potentially the county.
Isn't all that happen in the next step?
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying if.
Like, that's not part of the decision we're trying to get to here.
Yeah, I'm just thinking out loud and forgive me.
I'm thinking through what are the reasons Metro may say no, right? Or may say, or we get a response back that has a lot of conditions on it. So
If we get a bunch of conditions, we can say no then, right?
no, we can't, but if we're gonna ask, we want it to be successful. So I'm just gonna be trying to think through what are all the boxes that we need.
But to your previous point, I'm where you're at of going down the path of the full ask.
You can make a case for B to carve off the way down the road, future low density stuff, but beyond that, it doesn't make any sense to do. Like C, I appreciate the work you guys put into it, but C just seems like, what are we even doing here?
Yeah, I came in here leaning towards the full ask as well with the master plan. Yeah, so that we have control over there. Keith brought up some good points there that, of course, I don't understand all that, but the financing to make sure the infrastructure can actually get.
And that would really be the
to
only reason I would
successful.
even support B would be if there's an argument to say carving off that low density and B helps us with the financing of the infrastructure. You're saying no, but like if it helps us sell that better, then okay, great. But if not, bring it all in, and if it develops as it develops, plan it all.
Yeah, there's a lot of push. I'm getting a lot of political push that we should do the full ask, right? But that's also opportunity.
Well, I don't care about political push. I care about doing what's right.
No, I agree too, but what I'm trying to say is that's opportunity to get help on some of these infrastructure problems, so.
Very good point.
And
I think Taylor wanted to say something.
yeah, Taylor, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, there's a lot of what ifs and still a lot of, road to travel here. I feel like doing the full ask and getting the full plan and master planning areas and stuff like that puts us more in the driver's seat. Which should some of these what if situations happen, right? Because we can kind of only deal with that initial decision ahead of us. And if we're getting, political support for it, and, we've got not all the home builders, but as you said, they don't all have to agree, but, a lot of them do. And we've got some builders support, it feels like we could be in the driver's seat here more so than if we do the partial ask that is not as, it wouldn't be as well planned at the end, is my only thought, unless I'm understanding this right.
I was trying to say is I need the help of some of these agencies to make sure that they're pushing that we get these financing tools as well. And, that's something I'm gonna be asking them. So, hey, Metro, you need to push on Washington County. If we're gonna do a full ask, we need this help. So
That makes more sense.
that's where I'm coming from in terms of positioning us
So
ourselves.
between now and January 16th, conversations need to be had.
For the first meeting, yeah, and some of those conversations have already started.
And there
Yeah.
potentially, there's other state supposedly has money that they're trying to help, boost housing production.
Well, and that's another source because, right now the governor's office is kind of finalizing their, what do they call it? Their housing framework. That's the new HB 3414, and they are talking about infrastructure money to support housing, but right now they're putting so many restrictions on it in terms of how to support infrastructure in the area. So like Brookman's out.
20 units per acre.
And 20 units per acre of density, and I don't think a developer is gonna be interested in building that in Shirley West. So it helps us in those conversations as well.
Is there a concern that Metro is gonna reject if we do a full ask? Have they ever denied?
Tremendous amount of
I've got a lot of
type top-down pressure.
electives at the Metro level whispering in my ear saying, do it. So I'm not worried about that right now.
I think one, if I can just really quickly, one of the considerations, I know from Metro staff that they're gonna be looking at, what Metro staff is gonna look at that's different than the electeds, is the criteria. We have criteria for, just like when we approve stuff at Planning Commission, Metro has criteria that we are demonstrating compliance with. So that's what they're gonna base their decision off of.
Their recommendation.
I'm sorry, their recommendation to the council, to their council, right? Metro Council, yeah, to their council. The only feedback I've heard from staff in terms of a partial ask is, we really want to think about a complete community, and that's one of the boxes we need to check. And so if it is a partial ask, we'd have to make the argument that this is a complete community. So I think Sherwood, the full ask definitely gets us there. The partial ask, I think we can make an argument for.
Certainly B, I don't think.
Yeah.
C would be a hard
It's
sell.
good, questionable, yeah.
And I think we have good tailwinds on this item too, but when you look at the different types of asks, the housing is a no-brainer. The industrial money is something that Metro has balked against in the past. Seems to be good momentum on that right now. Staff and Bruce have been doing an amazing job getting in front of all the different groups out there.
Explaining why the
this is
balance.
important. Understanding it's not just about acres, it's about size of lots and all this kind of stuff. So I think there's really good momentum there, but I do worry a little bit that we might see conditions on the industrial side, but so we need to keep pushing it.
And then you step them, then collectively, as you move forward, you just have to hunker down and be stubborn back. Say, we're trying to be good partners, but standing on our necks and
Yeah, and I'm,
making us feel
to be
uncomfortable.
clear, I'm generally supportive of full ask too. I just want to make sure we have the tools and support partners out there to get it done correctly.
For the residences in the most western parts, that is grayed out in the partial, they were not wanting to come in to begin with.
They're mainly
That,
The road alignment,
They're
the
concerned.
conceptual road alignment.
I don't think that's why it was grayed out. That was grayed out because that would be the last phasing.
sure, it is coincidence, but that also, okay.
The domino of infrastructures.
And I wouldn't even,
And
know
it's
that
amazing.
it's fair to say all the people in the gray area would be against.
Right.
Like some of
No,
them.
Some
Sure.
will.
We've heard,
Brush that brush.
sure, yeah, okay. We've, the most vocal, I would say, from that area of the,
Yes. We have 5 more minutes. Is there additional information that you would like to see for the next meetings?
I mean, I think I'm ready to make a decision, but we can wait till January if we want to.
There's no issue waiting, right?
Whatever you guys prefer.
Dan, what's Dan, where are you thinking? What do
We can't
you?
make a decision.
I know, but just-
Yeah.
but I mean, along with your question, the financing for the infrastructure, I think would be the biggest to do the full ask. Just, I don't know enough about that to know what I don't know right now.
Yeah, it's some of it's very political. I mean, the headwinds in general right now are, you got Washington County with big budget deficits because they burned down all the reserves over the last 4 years. So they are looking for ways to supplement that. So our mistip transportation dollars are at risk right now. The county's portion of WCCLS library funding is at risk right now. So that's where, in my mind, a lot of the uncertainties coming around this, and the program that Keith was talking about is directly related to mistip and being the bond against that stuff, so.
But it, at the end of the day, it doesn't, whether. Isn't that just more about when it develops, whether we bring it in or not, right? Like if it, at least if we bring it in, it's there ready when the funds are
Well, I
ready.
agree, we just have a little leverage right now, that's all.
Yes. We have, yeah, so we should use it.
We should use it, yes.
As far as more information, I don't know what else.
Unless you have a crystal ball about financing. I wish I had one. You need both.
Yeah, I mean, we could bring over the details of what that memo says right now. I mean, I just tell you really quickly, we look really good on transportation. We'll bring it back, but there are some, and I think the thing you got to keep in mind is this is conceptual, so it could be, we can't get to certainty. But we can get to relativeness, which is what we're talking about. If you do a partial, it's going to be less, and we would be more concerned. If it's the full, it provides the most flexibility. So
Would it be useful for council, maybe in the next, assuming you guys put this together, just kind of like, here are all our financing option in 101.
Yeah, kind of what he said.
And it could even be, if you want to give an example of, this is how Hillsborough South
sure,
works.
Yeah,
Sure.
but lids, special assessments,
Yep.
all those different
That would
tools
be
that are out there.
really, that'd be helpful.
And, what are our options to bond against future revenue in those programs and stuff like that? 'Cause
I mean, to me, that's more helpful after it's brought in, like, if it doesn't affect my decision at all.
I'm not saying it does, I'm just
Yeah.
saying, I think.
Well, you were asking, so I'm
Yeah.
telling you, to me, that's like, as we go to comp planning, I'm super interested in all that stuff. For this decision on what to bring in, I don't care.
Yeah, let's bring it in.
For me, in leveraging getting dollars to put in the infrastructure from an order of things, and I don't know if the order is right. But let's see, we submit an ask, we go through the process, we give Metro that says, these are the tools we have to have to be successful with this area. Get Metro to say, yep, this is what you're right. And let's say one of the tools is this mistip bonding with the county. We turn around and say, hey, county, this is what the plan requires, that Metro was tentatively approved. We still have not approved it yet. Green light that project, that program at the county level, so we can take advantage of it to help build stuff out.
I mean, if you're saying we can put funding asks in our ask, I didn't know that, so.
I am supportive of as part of the,
That was part of, I didn't know that was part of the deal.
I think it should be part of the deal. I think it should be part of the deal, so to help,
Or at least get agreement that that's gonna be a tool we can.
yeah.
I mean, if
'Cause I'd have a different opinion if we can't get outside money or accelerate money like the MISTIP program. Because it, quite frankly, pissed me off when we went down the path with Brookman and you look at what you have at Brookman, and then you go to South Hillsborough, you go to Tigard's River Terrace, you go to Bethany areas, and they have all that massive infrastructure in there. And our Brookman Road sucks.
So I think the
Who
problem
paid for
for trying to avoid is having to sit there for 15 years. Right. Yeah, I mean, even if it was money that was fronted and paid back through SDC collections later, like that's still a win versus.
So I think if we can put.
I didn't know that was something we
then
could do.
maybe that is something we talk about.
I'm advocating for it, certainly.
So I think that's like us talking about it now. I mean, in between meetings, obviously, we're out working with these agencies, see what kind of commitments we can get, but if we're.
And the fallback could be, okay, if the county's not gonna do their program, then we need the state to step up and replace that. Fill in the blank dollar amount with a grant. In the state.
I mean, the good news is that the state has recognized there's a need for infrastructure money. That's really good news. Now we just need to tune it to where we can actually use it. The programs work, so.
Cool. Thank you, guys. Good discussion. Thank you. Yep.
We need a quick break, or do you guys want to jump right in the next meeting? This is the work commission. Yeah, so we got a lot of commission folks here.
The dinner, our way of dinner? Okay, sorry, I'm not trying to be mean.
So when it gets here.
I thought we were gonna leave before we talk.
When it gets here, we'll stop.
That makes sense.
The police.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Went to Tillamook. So,
If you're one of our
Family
chairs.
is, that's kind of fun.
Have a seat.
You stay in town?
The region, my cousin posted over Mixland area.
Nice.
Sean, we got a spot.
Oh, perfect. Sir. All right.
Yeah, you did.
What are you doing here? So is the view number?
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to move.
Let Katie get it set up.
All the food. I'm in the way.
What,
We're just gonna take a recess.
Going live.
We're live.
Okay, I'll have to find out,
Yeah.
for sure.
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone for part two of our work session tonight. We're here to discuss, one of the things, which is going back in time and for the public. We had a meeting earlier in the year to talk about how do we better close the circle and communicate between council and our boards and commissions in terms of goals and objectives for the year. So you guys know what council's thinking. And most importantly, in my mind, something a little new for us, making sure that council understands what our boards and commissions are thinking about as we go into our visioning session. So tonight is first meeting where we're going to start talking about that. I talked with Kristen a little bit about this, and I think some of you have had chances to have these conversations with your boards or commissions, and some may not have yet. So this will probably be one of two meetings. We'll have another one in January to discuss this again. But I think this is we want our boards, and at least I want our boards and commissions, I think I'm speaking for all council, to really do good work, think about what our community needs, make great recommendations. We want to hear that from you. We also think it's important for you to understand kind of what council's goals and objectives are well, so we can all be aligned and working together and that stuff. So before we get started, Craig had a brilliant idea today. So what we just passed out are what our goals and objectives are from last year.
Yeah, this is what we went over at the last.
Exactly. So y'all have a copy of that again. But I think what the first thing we should do is just go around the room real quick and just introduce everybody again, make sure we all know each other and would you like to start?
Yeah, because I just went by the taco. David Shireman, Park and Rec Board Chair.
Neighbor Council?
Brian Dorsey, Chair of the Police Advisory Board here in Sherwood. And Sean Garland, Chair of the Library Advisory Board.
Doug Scott, City Council.
Jen Castler, I'm the co-chair for the Arts Commission.
Dan Stanky, City Council.
Jimmy on council.
Katie Strode, Budget Committee Chair.
Vice Council.
Cass Thompson, Chair, Community Advisory Board.
Gene Simpson, Chair of the Planning Commission.
Alan Rappleyea, I'm filling in with Ryan Adams for City Attorney.
Craig Sheldon, Public Works Director, filling in as City Manager.
We have a couple people online. Taylor?
Taylor Giles, City Council.
Hey, I'm Ryan Adams. I'm the city attorney. I'm out doing some military training, but hanging out here tonight. So good to be with everybody.
I see you have your BDUs on. That's great. Awesome. And anyway, so again, welcome everybody. So for this meeting, for our board and commission chairs, who's had a chance to talk to their board and commissions about goals and objectives? That's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Well, and frankly, have a 45-minute conversation and get through everybody is not reasonable. So we kind of figured that we need a second meeting anyways, but is there a volunteer to go first in terms of what they're hearing from their committee and want some suggestions and ideas so we can start that conversation with council? And you just took a bite, so I thought I'd pick on you.
We talked a little bit about it at our meeting following the meeting that we had with all of you, and we're pretty much, we have the master plan in place, and that's kind of where our focus is. The two big things that we're still in favor of are finding additional property specifically on the other side of 99. We think that's really our area that needs the most attention. And so that's what we'll just continue to bring forward to you, is following that master plan and trying to, everything else on our master plan pretty much falls into place after we acquire the land, really. We're doing a few small things like working on Murdoch Park, and we'll continue to do those small things, but the big ticket items really are dependent on getting land and getting I'll call it a neighborhood style park on the other side of 99. So we certainly appreciate the council seeing that vision and carrying it through. And if we want to change course or something else comes up, we're more than happy to talk about it, but the master plans are guiding document.
Awesome. Any questions?
Sort of my goal.
Pickleball.
We've talked about that.
The last report is everything was much better. For those that don't know, we changed I put our tennis court / pickleball court up on the water tower in Snyder Park. We changed the times, and we got some nets and changed the court, did we repaint them? We were going to.
They were already striped.
They were already striped, okay.
But we installed permanent nets.
We got permanent nets.
So now we have 2 pickleball courts and 1 tennis court.
So we took our pickleball availability time, which was about, 10, 12 hours a week, to basically all daylight hours pickleball can be played, and that seems to have appeased the mass.
Wow.
I got stopped in paint twice for whatever changes I go, well, the park board, but yeah, and public works.
Public Works and Kristen and everybody in the city, we knew we had a problem, we looked at it and came up with a solution, and we know it's not perfect, but it did definitely increase our capabilities, and it seems to make people happy.
You ever want to change it back to tennis? Yeah, my vote.
Well, that's, one of the other things on our list down there with getting more is adding more pickleball court. And the other thing we want to do, and hopefully the counselors all are on this, if lacrosse didn't happen when I was in high school. I actually did play pickleball in high school in a court sport class, and then I didn't hear of it for 30 years. Lacrosse and soccer were.
Not big back in
PE
high
thing.
school.
Yeah, so trying to pick what the next thing is difficult, because you gotta have the infrastructure in place before people can really do it, and that's kind of difficult. I know, like, mountain biking is a thing, and that just had I don't know if you follow the Newburgh news, but they had some mountain biking area. It had a big article and stuff, and it got shut down, and so, how do you balance between horses, hikers, and mountain bikers? That could be a problem down the road as the city expands. If we got some hilly terrain added in there, then mountain biking might be a thing, so.
Yeah.
Trying to think that far out when you don't know what is going to exist in 20, 30 years is difficult, but we'd like to be able to help guide the city that way. So, but it's tough to know what it's gonna look like.
Friends.
Exactly,
Go back to that crystal ball.
yeah, somebody's gonna win big when they figure out what the next big thing is.
On that note, I have a question about working together from the planning commission. And as we go through the Sherwood West process, I'd like to just throw out on the table, how do we facilitate communications through the Sherwood West as we go through the final concept planning, so that we get the types of parks and the spaces that we need? It's not a question for today, but we need to start building the bridges and the avenues so that when we concept plan it, that we get the right size parks in the right areas. And I think that'll be a good joint work session with the
Absolutely.
Parks Board. So there were a lot of visions that came out of the Sherwood West process itself. And when it starts going through the hearing process, it'd be nice to have parks already having that into this.
I have a somewhat related question between planning and parks. So if I recall, maybe the final subdivision of the Denali area went through a few times, and I think the final resolution on a park was they had to pick 1 or 2 amenities that were from the park master plan, and I think that was then supposed to go back through the planning commission for approval. Did that ever happen? Do we know what amenity got picked?
So they haven't submitted for their final site plan
Okay.
approval quite yet.
So we're still waiting.
We're still
Okay.
waiting.
But that does have to go to
But
planning
yes,
commission.
it does.
So I think something to be aware of in that communication aspect is the previous direction, I think came from Parks or maybe City Council, I don't remember, but it was to pick an amenity, and I would say like it was a sport court or a bocce court or some sort of sporting amenity from the list that's already in the Parks Master Plan, and then you all were to sign off on it. So just heads up if you didn't know already.
Yeah, and that's great because we've had different information coming from different parks, like pocket parks were not desirable because they are too hard, costly to maintain. But then can you define that, and how do we do our job when we're working with developers and time of PUD and stuff? So I look for that avenue too.
Yeah, we'd be more than happy to have a joint work session or meeting and talk about it over the years, what, pocket parks, you mentioned those. For those who don't know, those are pretty small, like a lot. And they're really limited. I always felt, but kid can't throw a baseball or a football in the area of the park. It's only really for toddlers. And that's a pretty limited group, and where we'd rather focus on getting more neighborhood or even regional parks to do the things that are on our list. The pocket parks do seem to come in, as I know, it's a trade-off, they.
50% open space at time of
Exactly.
development on community.
Yeah, and so Craig can probably speak to it a little more, you still have to maintain them and spend time there. Sometimes they're pretty small and we'd rather focus on the bigger things that are serving a wider breadth of our community.
Makes sense.
I think that one of the keys that I support on that is we don't need the same kind of parks all over, right? You know, so I think at the back of the Denali one, we wanted to, you know, because of the weird drop off, we were thinking, hey, if there's a meditation area or path, you know, that's up there, that's more of a quiet walking area that has the nature to the water area and stuff like that. So I'm supportive of you know, and even though I had raised 5 children in Sherwood, or still raising, I guess, we love those parks, but you know, there's other kinds of parks that are not just for throwing balls or for climbing and going down slides and stuff. So I love that you're looking at those other types of things to give us varied activities in the city.
So we did have our last park and rec meeting is that we don't necessarily want each park to look alike. Some amenities are be there, like a swing set, but each park having its own unique features and its own, you know, neighborhood personality is a thing. I sat in with Kristen on an interview and talked about growing up, if you don't mind a little story. We had a park called Purple Park and it had railroad ties that were painted purple and it was like a pirate ship. Kids were all over it. Well, those eventually crumbled and had to be rebuilt and the neighborhood was adamant. This is an identity for that neighborhood.
Rebuild it.
And so when we did a boat theme and a pirate type ship, only with modern, you know, construction and stuff. And I mean, that was literally the neighborhood's identity was the purple part. And so I think that's important that we do have different things. And then you have different amenities for different activities.
Well, I'm sure part of the conversations, which we had a lot of conversation when we were redoing Woodhaven Park, was more inclusive.
The sandbox, when you say.
Well,
Yeah.
I think accessibility is,
Yeah.
that's where you're going for.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going for.
Especially if you're in the opportunity now to build a brand new
Right.
park and not
Exactly.
renovating an existing park, you've got more of an open.
Right.
And that is on
I
our
think that's
master
what we
plan.
said was we can't, while we couldn't pivot and switch up Woodhaven, we needed to focus on that next time we do it.
And one of the things about Woodhaven is if we'd have built something that was inclusive and you have people coming in, we have 7 or 8 parking spots there.
Right.
It helps us
Yeah.
parking.
And
So again, that goes,
becomes a regional destination.
yeah, that's why we're
Yeah.
bigger regional, so we need to address parking access.
Part with Metro on it.
Yeah.
And then that is all an inclusive type play structure is on our list.
I hear that parking, like schools, people, you know, will share, utilize community resources, you know.
Yeah, especially when it comes to ball fields. Like, we need a better job with that.
Here.
So I've taken up a lot of time. I hope
No, that's a lot. I had one question, because when we, in our last council meeting, we were talking about the pedestrian bridge. Cost came in higher and all that, but one of them, Renee, you brought it up. Do we need to look at the master plan in terms of the new pedestrian bridge coming in? One, making sure it's in there and making sure that we've looked at it in terms of how is that gonna, when Sherwood West is all built out, how is that all gonna interface?
Yeah, it's like part of our parks and trails system.
I think it should be.
Yeah.
It's the Y's there, you got the school, and then hopefully the next park that comes in that area would be tied into that. In some way, and we can tie in the Ice Age trail that we still haven't, we've got a chunk of it, which is great and see used all the time. But can we tie that in there together too? Years ago, I mean, some of you probably did it, we had maps where we, you know, wanted to put walking trails and stuff throughout the whole city and stuff where you could literally walk anywhere in the city, and 99 has always been our big obstacle.
Right.
With that bridge, and then I know that there's talk about the underpass, with the trail, that's gonna really tie the city up much more than it is. So having a regional park that does have different amenities will be accessible for both sides of the city.
And I think on the parks and trails side of things is also, there's a lot of reasons we've been talking about when it comes to Sherwood West, we've been talking about master planning. for housing and controlling how that looks and everything, but I think just as important is what you can do with master planning when it comes to parks and trails, because now you can place the trails exactly where you want them. You can place the parks exactly where you want them, and you can have that variety of those things that we're talking about that really builds that totally cohesive network from the ground up, instead of having these things come in piecemeal and then their trail doesn't match up with their trail, and you know, and they're not really where you want them. They're not the best. They're not the best totally cohesive picture. So the master planning to me is another point. We haven't talked about that a lot in terms of parks and trails, but I think we need to as we get into that.
Yeah, one of the reasons I have the question is I was thinking about it in terms of what is our park? We want to make sure our parks master plan reinforces what we're trying to do with master planning in Sherwood West, right?
Yeah.
So there's some like maybe even an amendment to the master plan, kind of these new plans that.
I think what you're doing here, to me, this is kind of the guide for the master plan, our park plan that's in with all the other master plans. So I think it's a great idea. Look at the list and, you know, everything's represented on there.
Yeah, and I just saw staff over there going, well, we're gonna have to do all that anyways, right?
We're gonna have to do a park master plan that addresses Sherwood West as part of the comprehensive planning.
One thing that came up through the planning commission hearing process on the pedestrian bridge hearing in specific was to consider a wide intersection to take if we're making a destination to the south. We have one path that goes to the high school, but taking that junction, and if we want a trail system over there, have an off ramp of the pedestrian bridge to the south to go to.
We have one that stairs.
Instead.
But it does wide, the ramp itself wise toward the front of the school, but the stairway wise toward the south.
Well,
But you're right. I would say that isn't.
but if it's in the master, if it's in the master plan, it's
Talk about building an accessible
it's more,
park.
it's more fundamental.
Yep.
Amen.
Well, awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. Any last questions before we move on? Who would like to go next? Jennifer.
Are you volunteering me over there? Brian?
Well, I will touch on some things. We haven't had a full conversation, a robust conversation. We've got some newer board members. And so we definitely want to include and get some insight for them because we brought them on just because of their background and their standing in the community. But the survey that we had conducted last year? Yeah, last year. Really beneficial to us, both giving us insight into what they believe the status and the situation with the police department in as far as staffing. But as importantly, things that are important to them, mental health, crime, local crime, small crime and car prowlers, that sort of thing. And so what it allowed us to do is to sort of refocus some of our social media to address some of those concerns and needs. And as they come up, they're able to see, you know, truly where the police are having an impact in those areas. And I think that was a great opportunity for us to hit one of our goals in terms of keeping the community involved and informed about what's happening and how they can impact the safety of their community. So, but we're going to have a more robust conversation to bring in again those new members and their feedback and input. So,
Okay.
I jumped again. We had talked briefly about it, but again, we got to roll back a little bit.
That's okay. This is a process. So that's not a problem. Any questions for Brian?
Next person.
Taylor, any questions? So thank you, Brian.
Okay.
Unless Sean wants to.
Sean,
No,
would you like to go?
Please.
We'll go around there. Okay. Well, first of all, we want to thank you. I'm representing the Arts Commission and really want to thank the council for being so supportive with the arts program in all of its forms, really. And thank you to Counselor Mays for always being available and for Counselor Young for coming to our meetings when we need them. When we need, you know, when Counselor Mays can't be there. So we went through a few items that we're pretty proud of. The very first thing, I had this third on my list, but it's really one of the strong points of our team. We have a fully engaged, full group, and they are diverse in their ideas and their different walks of life. And it's really a very vibrant arts commission at the moment. And because of that, over the past 3 years, we've been able to pull together at least 3 different types of cultural festivals, and we're going to continue those. And the first one that comes up is the Dia de los Muertos in October, followed by the Diwali Festival, which is its 2nd year, that comes in November. And then we're in our 3rd year, the Lantern Festival, which happens to be the Chinese New Year, a year of the dragon this year. And we have $700 that we were just gifted from a local realtor. So those 3 programs are fantastic because it really does bring out a huge part of the community that we don't always see out and about in Sherwood. And it's absolutely fantastic. There's a lot of energy, and it's exciting to continue those programs. The second program that we're obviously going to continue is the mural program. We're looking for our 2nd location, 3rd and 4th perhaps, but we're excited to see another mural go up. And then our the final focus that we have for next year is we're going to augment the cultural walking tour. So what we're really starting to think about, and I think this came about from the Ice Age Trail, starting to think about, you know, what it was like before 15,000 years ago and beyond, when those Ice Age floods were coming through, and starting to think about how we can augment our cultural tour to expand what we have. So augment what we have, but expand it into what was going on thousands of years ago with the Native Americans, with animals, what was going on at the time, and expand that. So support what we've got, but then expand a little bit more and change the numbers. We've got little numbers.
Like having historical markers.
Like historical markers, but they're little numbers that are on these cultural maps that you see around town.
Yep.
So we would switch that numbers, create the map and have that online, and then augment that. And I think that would a little, hey, you know, there's gotta be geology, and there will be lots of that.
Who will be turning to you about geology?
I don't know anybody. We'll have to find a geologist to tell us about it.
We have someone else who's a natural resources, environmental science in a previous life over there in the refrigerator. So, you know, just to touch on what you've said, and then I'm gonna close it up, but we're, you know, the arts in Sherwood should augment every other master plan that we've got going on. We want continuity of planning, so including the arts, about how we want to convey that sense of place throughout the community, so that we can have that visual continuity throughout the wherever someone, you know, wherever people go, whether it's in the parks, whether it's downtown, we have that. And I think art is a great way to continue to do that.
I kind of like that when Jennifer and I talked earlier today, and the continuity of the art, the artwork, public art, not just having it look like we threw this art here and this art here, like somehow it like.
There's a
Look,
plan
yeah.
to it.
Yeah, there's a
certainly
plan.
to it.
Yeah, yeah.
One thing I love about listening to this and just about this committee and the work in general is there's so much diversity to it, right? You've got fine arts, you've got the cultural arts, you've got the murals, I mean, there's just all the history, like all of it is kind of like, it's really a diverse, you know,
It really is.
a diverse set of things. And I like that it feels like we're trying to hit all of those areas, not just at times you go to some cities, and maybe sometimes in the past in Sherwood, it's like, it's fine arts, or it's cultural, you know, it's like, but it feels like we're really trying to hit, you know, cause different things appeal for everyone. I love that we're trying to hit all of those markers.
So I recently saw some articles, and I guess I could forward them to you, but of you know, maybe less represented groups like Native American or different you know, different groups that were actually providing grants for artwork for, you know, their artists to be placed into cities. Have we looked into any of those kind of programs to again to just diversify the kind of art that we're getting, and also frankly to take advantage of local artists and things like that? Is that part of the plan?
Absolutely, Counselor Giles. We've got right now, I think in January, February, we've reached out to the Confederate Tribes of the Grand Ronde Community of Oregon. They have a I can't pronounce it, Chachalaco Museum in Grand Ronde. So it's a museum that they've been curating for several years now. And we will have that curator of that museum come to talk to the Cultural Arts Commission to help us understand that sense of place. And it's not just what we're doing here, but it also is going to go towards those elements on the bridge that we wanted to kind of incorporate some of that artwork that we've been requested to do from the council to pull that in. And that will be a great topic to ask them. So we'll put that on our list.
And there's also, I want to say, and again, you can look into these, but the Scandinavian Institute up there and up by the mall kind of has a similar one for Scandinavian art, and they recently did it financed that giant troll that's looking in the jam shop that is all over Instagram and everything else, right? And so there's so many of these things that could be iconic and frankly, I've gone there twice and I take visitors when they come and we always have lunch there. So we're bringing money to that area every single time because we're going to see the art. So anyway, that was paid for by somebody else. So
Great, thank you. That's all, yeah, thanks.
Any other questions, Jennifer?
Yeah, has there been talk with the Main Street group as far as working with them? Because I know that they're trying to do some more
Yeah.
artistic stuff.
Yeah, I believe that I don't know if they closed shop for a while and then
They're rebranded.
relaunched themselves. We did have someone representative coming to the meetings for a while, and that was maybe 2 years ago. But it is a good idea to re-engage with them. We do have discussions with them off and on, especially one of their representatives, Greg Jaycott. But yeah, I think that's a good idea.
So along that lines, they too are interested in the mural piece.
Oh,
And there are a couple of downtown businesses who are on board with doing a mural
yeah.
in the building.
And I did let them know that you guys have a CEP grant in the last cycle, so
We need to use that.
they
by
might
March.
be a conduit to join forces to find a place
Okay,
and use
yeah.
the grant.
Perfect. I've got Greg Jaycott on my speed dial.
You called,
It's Jake.
Jake
Jake.
Podium.
Okay, yeah, I know Jacob's.
They've been doing a great job of revitalizing that program and moving it
Okay.
forward.
Do you know
That's
Jake from
great,
Symposium?
Yeah, okay.
Not from State Farm.
Yeah.
No, it's Jake from Symposium. Yes, okay, that's great. Thank you, that's solid. That's good.
There's that vacant land near the Sherwood Arts Center. Is there a possibility, especially being so close to the Sherwood Arts Center, to have up some displays, billboards of local artists? or
Yeah.
art?
Is that the
That could-
gravel?
The gravel
Where's
lot?
Train Depot?
Yeah.
What?
Eventually, there's gonna be something there,
So we actually have projects and money in the budget to actually study what we want to do with that area. So some of the ideas that have come up is like recreating in design at least the original train station along one side and then somehow expand it. So you have what I would love to see is like covered outdoor festival space that you could maybe have food carts in there one week or expand our Saturday market.
Well, that's a great idea.
You could
Okay.
you could rent the
Violates our code.
building out to like a coffee shop, or something like that. So there's all kinds of stuff we could.
Well,
do.
that's actually an interesting idea. So I grew up in suburban Minneapolis, and in Hopkins, Minnesota, there was an old train depot building actually that converted to a coffee shop and gangbuster business. So,
Wow,
because
that's
it's a
awesome.
tiny little building, about the size of whatever it was last called by the Shell Napa Auto Parts.
Oh, yeah.
You know, kind of a smaller building.
Sharkies.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you go to the spaghetti factory in the lobby, hanging on the wall is a big black and white picture of the original train depot on Railroad Street.
In Sherwood?
In Sherwood, in the
Uh-huh.
Sherwood, yeah, so if you're in there, go check it out, because it's a very, I found out later, it was a very standard building that the train company just put up everywhere.
Yeah.
It's just like one, you know, and I think it's a little bit of Sherwood's past Cause I mean, Sherwood is here because the railroad came through.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
I love it.
1910.
awesome. Any other questions for Jennifer? Great. Who wants to go next?
Everyone's looking at me. Wow. Okay. So, yeah, what we've been doing at the library.
Shot at this.
Yeah, so Library Advisory Board, what we've really been working on the last couple months, and you all are fairly aware of that, is we finally got our collection development policy completed and approved. Yeah, so that's done. Thank you for your assistance on that, where you can. Yes, so that's in the books. We can move forward from that. And Adrian has been going gangbusters on this strategic planning process that we've got. So this is exciting, just really talking about future visions for our library. And of course, when we take over this whole building for the library soon, you know, to really realize our vision. Yeah.
New City Hall and the RA.
Somewhere else to go.
And now she's very like.
No, that was just my. Yes, so, no, but, yeah, and so, yeah, just speaking about our board as well, yeah, we've got a full board, we've got a great mix of experienced members on our board, plus a lot of new members. We just, added a new high school member who is a longtime volunteer here with the library, so she's gonna bring just a ton of great experience and ideas already, and we're already kind of talking social media stuff, which some of us older folks don't.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, the TikToks and all that. So that's exciting. Yeah, we're really moving forward. And then, of course, one of the big things that we've been working on lately as well is just the foundation, the Sherwood Library Foundation as well.
Shell, what a
Shell.
creative name.
Yes, so an acronym. So that's something that Counselor Giles has been a steamroller on as well in the best possible way in helping us. He's our liaison for those who don't know, and really helping that, and a couple of our members of our board. We actually have a lawyer on our board as well who you know, is able to speak lawyer. So we're moving a lot with that, with doing all the groundwork for that. But of course, that's meant to, you know, raise some funds for our library and you know, let us really realize some of these visions in our strategic planning that we're working on. And so in January, we're going to be meeting again and talking more about how we're going to align with your goals here as a council and what we can do to you know, keep the good relationship that everybody has, you know, keep that moving. So,
Yay.
I'm so excited about Shell. I think this is a huge opportunity.
you know, it's
You know,
great.
We see the budget every year and like, I want libraries budget to be able to grow and grow, but we
Yeah.
can't do it without things like
Yep,
this, so.
and
it's
yeah.
exciting.
You having a first event planned?
What, still very much working on the paperwork and everything right now, but you know, we're talking, I mean, you know, Counselor Giles, myself, we have a lot of tie-ins with the theater groups in here, so that some of those seem like some natural
Nice.
combinations. I've been.
I actually stopped by and got my 6th library card at the Palo Alto Library today. And I set up a meeting with their, it just so happened their librarian was getting out of a meeting with their foundation. Obviously, they're a little bit of a different scale. They were running out of room on the wall for the $1 million plus donators. So hopefully we'll run into that problem, but I wanted to talk to him because he was one of the original founders of the Library Foundation. So we've had that. We've had some great volunteers from the community who've stepped up to help with, you know, making sure that we're a nonprofit, that we're reaching the right people, that we've got investment opportunities. So we're really trying to spread it out so that we can get a broad base to work from on this foundation.
Yeah, and really, you know, like Counselor Giles said, really focus on the many different ways that people can contribute to this foundation, not only just in maybe small money donations or events, but maybe get that big, you know, the whale, as it will, you know, somebody who in their will wants to leave a lot of money to a library foundation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There are people whose lives revolve around books. So we need to make sure that we're diversifying what we're looking at for foundations. And we're not, you know, there's certain kind of key ways to do it, but we also want to be creative as well and find some of those interesting ways that we can.
Is the goal capital projects or operational? We don't know yet, or?
Still kind of throwing stuff around at this point. Yeah, just, you know, just recognizing the lack of funding that we've got currently.
And the instability of the Washington County fund, right? 'Cause they're always
Being that
changing the
relationship,
formula,
yeah.
like we don't have control over that as much.
Yeah,
as
that
we'd like.
we
So
have,
it's-
we have a unique, relationship in.
While it's being formed, I assume there was some crossover, but the nonprofit will be separate from the advisory board,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Your
Yeah.
bylaws will have to spell out how to.
Yeah, and we're just helping, helping kind of get things.
Well, it doesn't mean advisory board members probably are gonna be involved, it's just that,
Could be
or
there as
could
well.
be, yeah.
Just gotta keep us up.
Yeah.
It's super exciting. I've been excited to all the diverse talent that's being brought to bear. I mean, Tom Sherwood and his investment background, I think it's amazing and there's really successful library foundations out there. So it's a model that works and it's, to Doug's point, it's timely because WCCLS and counties portion of their commitment is a little bit at risk right now, so.
Yeah, it's taking matters into our own hands a little bit
Right.
and it's a little bit overdue, I would say. And so, yeah, I think just the kind of the alignment of the right people at the right time and the motivation to do it is all hitting at once. So, yeah, it's been great. And again, big props to Counselor Giles for really his dedication on this. He's been outstanding.
And his Archer article was really awesome this month.
That's right. Keep it
About
fun.
the library, yeah.
Which library were you referring to, Taylor?
He said,
The one I went to this morning, Mitchell
Yeah.
Park. I showed them the article and asked if my library card was still active. They said it had been more than 30 years since I used it, so they deactivated it. So,
Very
but I could get a temporary one though, so that's what I wanted.
Yeah, I don't have anything else to add, but glad to answer any questions.
Questions?
I just one, it's not really a question, it's an idea.
Love it.
I think libraries and arts, are a natural connection, just like art and parks are. It would be great if we could have a joint meeting at one point earlier in the year.
Yep,
Talk
absolutely.
about how we can share resources and think about doing some, cross-pollination in terms of arts and
Absolutely.
that kind of thing.
this
Okay.
meeting has already been a success.
I was gonna say, yeah, maybe a mural about books.
There you go.
Oh.
Yes, in a park.
No idea.
There you go, reading a book, yeah.
Well, I have to it's like the bike racks, the
Yes.
that we put for both sides of the library. I almost took a picture, I had to crack up because I came and there was like 20 kids' bikes, all scattered, none of them touching.
I don't. That's really cool.
I think you
I think it needs to be a bike rack, because I think people think it's just.
I mean, they look amazing, don't get me wrong, but it just made me laugh. So,
Well, and my thought, the immediate connection is the Beverly Cleary thing in Portland, where there's a little statue,
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
and that's just that synergy of
Yeah.
the two. I don't know if we've got anything quite as that iconic here in Sherwood, but we can find something. Statue of June Reynolds or something, something like that. So,
awesome. Any other questions for the library? Robert? No?
I was gonna say that same thing, Robin and Tasha.
We got started a little bit late, so we can run a little bit long and I think you wanna wait for the next meeting?
Maybe. I mean, I could give a brief thing of what we talked about before the last one.
Sure.
If you want.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, so the budget committee met, I think, before we had our first meeting on this, so maybe we need to reconvene the budget
Right.
committee to talk about some of this, but the main thing that we talked about last time was possibly moving to a biannual budget. And we kind of went over the pros and cons of what a 2-year budget cycle would look like, and do department heads feel like they would be supported enough to have the year 2 information, and what would year 2 look like for the budget committee, and what part of the process would they be involved in for that, and the oversight for that year 2 appropriation or the supplemental budget process that it would go through. And so we kind of weighed some of the pros and cons of it, of doing it this year for next year's budget versus waiting another fiscal year, so 25, 26. And I think the committee kind of came to the consensus that it would be best if we got on the same cycle as the state's budget, which means that this budget would be in line with PERS, so we would know like the PERS rates for that whole biennial budget that we would be doing. And then we would at least know one CBA. So we would be able to budget for those COLAs and those benefits in there. So I think the decision was to wait until FY 25-26 to possibly look at a biennial budget.
I think that's smart. That's super smart. And as I'm learning, there's Hillsborough's going biennial, Oregon City already is. There's a bunch of.
Yeah, there's
A lot of efficiency. I mean, they're going that process every year. There's a lot of overhead in that process that,
Takes a lot of time.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think just working out what the year two would look like, if that sounded like the most discussion that the committee had was, what do we do on year two?
What's the process?
Yeah, what's the
Council
process?
asked that Years ago, and it just kind of went nowhere. I thought we had some discussions on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it'll give staff time to do things in that off year. That instead of spending time working on another budget. So,
Yeah, it's the finance, I'm speaking for David here, but you know, you finish your budget, you jump into audits, you finish your audit season. you
Yeah,
jump
but,
right into
yeah.
budgets. So
it's an endless cycle.
having a break in there, then now we can do other stuff.
Yeah,
That could be time we actually could get some like projects done where you, yeah.
yeah, I think that was the main draw for them to propose it. So I think everything was a yes. It's just we need to wait until it's more aligned with the state's budget and possibly one CBA.
Yeah, and also it aligns with our election cycles as well.
Yeah, that's right.
It's important too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the newly elected council and mayor comes in, establishes the 2-year budget, and then they're there for most of it.
Yeah,
Which makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Awesome. Any questions? Excellent, thank you.
Okay, last year, well, we were working on the making Sherwood an age-friendly city. And that has finally, we're in the process, that's been finalized. So we have got new members on the board. So the 3 areas that we'd like to focus on for this year will be educate everyone on what an age-friendly city actually is. And there will be a business award added to the Chamber of Commerce that who do the business award. So we're working on that. And then looking at affordable housing, especially in the Sherwood West area, and then looking at transportation.
I would, as we get through starting to master plan or comprehensive plan, whichever way we go, Sherwood West, like, I think throughout the concept planning process, like a lot of us have had, I mean, we think this kind of housing would be good for seniors, but like, I'd love to actually get information from the senior advisory board, from seniors directly, right? I think we're doing I think we're educated guessing, but at the end of the day, it's still a lot of guessing. So I think that'd be
We started looking at our last meeting, we actually had a review of like what the potential houses could be like, and we had the discussion on, well, what would it look like? And not only could it be affordable for seniors, but also for first-time buyers.
Yeah.
I mean, because Sherwood's getting really expensive for most people.
everywhere is.
They cannot, yeah, but I mean, it's like, how can we meet the needs of not just the older population, but the younger population as well?
Great. Well, that brings up a really good point, because as part of the Sherwood West process, we're looking at creating some specialty zoning types, like cottage cluster only or multifamily only, and getting input from your committee on what are there opportunities to put stuff in the code that encourages that housing?
We'll be getting lots of feedback.
Amazing.
I would also, we talked earlier about the parks. I would love to hear what the senior board would consider for the park options, right? And whether, you know, what kinds of amenities they would see as being valuable in the park space. You know, I see people that are elderly out walking on some of the trails, but I don't know if that's it, right? I'd love to see some creative work on that.
Pickleball?
Just from the park perspective, like tennis and pickleball are considered senior-friendly sports. So we do consider that, but certainly getting input from your board would be excellent when we're putting together. I guess just seeing us do all this, it seems like we almost are coming to where we're gonna have master plans for everybody, but they're under an umbrella for the whole city. So they all kind of look the same and they've got input from everybody. Is that, I
I
think that's
know.
what the idea was, is for this whole thing.
Yeah, one of the things that came up in the senior board a while back was the idea of having sitting spaces, benches along the trails.
Yeah, yeah, that was.
Enough of them, and having some and then at a certain frequency, so that, yes, you can.
There probably is, how far is it?
Yeah. Well, then, I'm sure it's in the plans. Yes, senior friendly.
Transportation, could you elaborate a little bit on that?
So we're like, as people get older and they can lose their independence. So it's like, well, how do they get to their appointments? How do they get to, how do they go grocery shopping? And also then, how do they actually get to places where they can actually meet? I mean, because social isolation, I mean, that's like the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So it's like, how can we encourage that community and how can we make transportation accessible? I mean, because like the public transportation in Sherwood, I mean, it's
There isn't any.
favorable. And then like the likes of like, there's Uber and Lyft, but it's like, how affordable can they be?
And they have to use.
We need an
they have to use
intercity
it.
bus that does a loop.
You know,
Something like
the
Sherwood.
app, yeah.
Yeah, and then like for people that, there was one lady who we're having conversation with, it's like she has an electric scooter and she's like, I can only go in one direction. I'm limited by how far I can go. That's.
Charging stations for scooters.
There you go.
Well, and with TriMet's, even their recent changes, how the bus
We're
stops
never
are
gonna do
moving,
anything on TriMet.
that made that problem even worse.
No, I like the Wilsonville that has their own.
Yeah, we have to do our own
I
system
think a
for in
smaller
town.
bus that goes around town, get TriMet out of downtown, it doesn't work. Sorry, it just does not work.
And
I
we've
mean,
had-
TriMet exists to take people from Sherwood up to the transit centers. It doesn't do anything for intra Sherwood transit.
Terrible.
And it never will. It never will.
Well, that's something we could be having a conversation with TriMet about, because they do have some options for smaller buses to run within a community.
Yes,
So, yeah, we've talked, I actually have talked to them about that, and I forget what the program is called, but there's a cost to the city for it, so.
Well, there
Well, maybe
were,
it's worth it.
there were talks early on about having it at the Y as well.
And I know somebody mentioned that Wilsonville has it. I called them briefly, but got too busy, but they, it's also a big benefit for the youth, right? That aren't able to drive as well. So I think that we ought to relook at it. I'd be supportive of that as well.
Well, that
Yeah.
program that Wilsonville has
Not
got
available.
squashed, TriMet doesn't allow it.
They were
anymore.
smart enough to opt out of TriMet decades ago.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, they're in a big fight with TriMet.
TriMet does have the smaller buses,
They do.
which would work much better downtown.
It's something we should probably put on our list of things to look at.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think it would be a huge benefit and that we
Yeah.
more so to get Sherwood West coming in, but I wouldn't want to wait that long. I think we can use it now.
Yeah, I agree. Awesome. Anything else?
I don't think we got any.
Gene, if we can run a little bit long, we'll do a second meeting to follow up with all this, so.
Planning is really exciting. We have a very well-rounded commission. We have a lot of diversity in our commission also. And for those of you that have served on the planning commission, shockingly, did we have a meeting this month?
No.
And no meeting in December and like nothing ever.
You guys are getting off easy over there. I'm glad you get a break.
I would say I had to get Google directions on how to get here. So, things that we talked about as a commission is wanting to get a, work session together, a roundtable on CFAC, once we get more information about what's going on with the climate friendly and whatever. Climate friendly and equitable communities and seeing how those impacts, because if we opt out of TriMet, now all of a sudden, I mean, CFAC says if you have a bus route within a half mile, you don't require parking. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to be impacting Sherwood. And as a planning commission, we're very nervous about that, and we're very nervous about other state mandates that will be coming in. So we fortunately have a great staff, Erica and Eric and Joy, keep us in line and keep us up to date on what's going on so we can help do that. Tree code is something that we've heard a couple times we need to update, because sometimes what we think is going to be protected isn't. And so I think we would like to look to the council to say, is that something that you see on your radar as tree code as being important? Annexation code, I know that you see part of it. We want to work on that.
Yeah, you could have been doing that these last 2 months with all your time off.
I heard council use staff from commission time to do Sherwood West.
That could be true.
Could be true. I do know that Old Town Code was in place to type 4 application to come to the planning commission, so we know what we're getting, but sometimes it might be a barrier. And so maybe re-looking at it to see if, I don't think the code's quite right yet, because what the last, I think we just need to revisit it so that if we don't want it to be a type 4, make it easier for people to develop in Old Town, that we need to make sure that the code is well vetted out and that any of the,
And the Old Town overlay design standards are they've been out around for a long time too, so I think it may need a refresher.
yeah, because
I'd be up for that.
yeah, because there was a recent application that would have had a very large blank wall had it not been a type 4. It could have been.
You guys did a great job on it.
So I just think, if we want to look at making things, but that's all time and resources of staff. So Old Town Code, tree code, annexation code. The CFEC stuff's gonna be killing us because that's all due by June, so. And
I
then
think we
whatever
put
other
a bedroom
mandates.
in for Erica and she can just be here all day.
Felt like that sometimes.
There for a while, we had the running joke that nothing started with Joy before 10 PM, because that's when our meetings were running till 10.
That's when she actually got started
running. So, and that's work sessions after the meeting started so late, so not
Goodness
happening.
gracious, yes. Discipline, if at all possible.
Cause you guys don't have the council rule that like hits 9, you need to vote today.
at 1 AM, right?
We did one night, it was.
I can't even think by then.
3 hearings that had, because we all work under, we have a state mandated 120-day
Yeah.
ruling for when we have to make quasi judicial decisions, so we can't continue.
Can't fund it.
Can't continue, so we had to just push on, so.
I think we got a lot of great
And
input.
I was gonna say, if you want an exciting evening, come to see a planning commission hearing after the first of the year. It's amazing what people think we can change. I can't tell you what business you're gonna run in your little space. I can just tell you what the footprint's gonna look like, because that's what's in the code, not.
Yep.
Well, it's a great way to learn about how cities operate, because a lot of what we do is directly related to what you do.
But it's what these boards and commissions here do that make a difference to what happens at the planning commission. By the time an applicant decides what they're gonna build on their lot, it's already been input from everybody else in the room that says, these are what's important to the community, let's put it in our code so that we get what's expected by the code.
Awesome. Any questions, Eugene?
I don't know, but we're so lucky Dean is on.
I mean, someday we're gonna have to have a statue of the Dean statue. Or a mural, yeah.
So we'll do a round 2 on this in January. We'll coordinate with the chairs on the exact timing of that, just make sure you have a chance to get back to your committees. This is amazing. Yeah, this is,
I don't remember whose idea this was, but it's brilliant.
yeah, it's just,
Oh,
well,
never mind then.
yeah, but what I didn't anticipate, because I wanted to make sure there was good lines of communication between council and the committees, but what pleasantly surprised me tonight was the collaboration and willingness to work across committees. For the benefit of all of us.
It seems so obvious now.
It does.
Right.
This is brilliant. So this is an amazing meeting. Thank you to all of our chair,
Inviting us.
all the work you do, and
Great.
let's keep talking. So I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn. Oh, yes.
5-minute break.
5-minute break. We'll get going at 7:15. Into the regular session.